Hello, my name is Russell Wright, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the biggest secret that is hidden in plain view, the largest cognitive blind spot probably in the history of the world, and we're going to talk about irrational numbers and the line between belief and experience. We're going to talk about what's actually going on in the world and why it's not a secret or a conspiracy because it's available for any and all to see and understand if you connect the dots between a few basic topics. Irrational numbers, specifically the US national debt, that's increasing at a rate that's inconceivable to the ordinary human mind. Because the numbers are so large, they're not really put into any kind of perspective since they have to be used. There's actually literally billions of dollars missing after the October event and the first hit that we took on Wall Street a couple of years ago. And what this means is that this is not a kind of number that can ever be paid back. Within the Manchevian economic indoctrination or brainwashing that our country has undergone over the last 50 years, we don't have a grasp on what value actually is. This is called value theory. And because we don't understand true value because of the economic indoctrination, thanks to Gregory Mankiw and the books that our economic students, when they go to college and university, the Bible of economics is slapped down on their desk. And they are told to believe something and indoctrinated to believe something that literally is false. The economic mechanism that is taught. It would be as if a scientist was taught from day one that a unit of measurement was different than the unit of measurement that another group of people actually use. For example, an inch was actually 3/4 of an inch, or worse, that a centimeter was actually an inch, or much worse, that a nanometer was actually an inch. And that's what's being taught by economic students. It's what's being taught to economic students. And there's other books you can read called The Black Swan by Hassin and other economic contrarianists who have tried to reveal to the world what's really going on in terms of economics. The Black Swan is a fantastic read, and Nassim Nicholas Taleb tries to explain the disproportionate role of high-impact, hard-to-predict and rare events that are beyond the realm of normal expectation in economics, non-computational, consequential rare events using scientific method in economics. He's actually gone so far as to create a lot of enemies in the Manchevian economic school of thought by saying that all economists should lose their jobs and that they should go find other work or be retrained in parallel disciplines because it is fraudulent, literally fraudulent, which I agree with 100% based on kind of deep research into Manchevian economics and the derivatives. When I'm talking about derivatives, I'm talking about, guys, we're not in Kansas anymore. Okay, this is Kansas. This is the world GDP and the actual monetary fiat exchange that takes place on the ground or is supposed to take place on the ground, where ordinary citizens can exchange a dollar's worth of value based on a dollar's worth of Earth's resources. In other words, if I spend this amount of money, let's all agree that when I grow carrots in my yard, it costs this amount of time and energy and money to create that carrot, and that the time and the energy and the actual value based on resources and integration of the resources that it took me is what I should charge for those carrots, and we should all agree on that. Manchevian economics has hijacked that system and said that the market determines what the value of those carrots actually are. In other words, those carrots aren't really worth the $14 of growth, whatever. Okay, that you can only get this certain amount for carrots in the marketplace, and therefore market demand drives the value of carrots. So a paper cup or a styrofoam cup might actually have more value than a carrot in the marketplace. So you have all these really strange kind of value systems that are kind of moving all around based on the Manchevian economic system, which is the first lie, okay, that kind of put Kansas over the rainbow. The main thing is that most average human beings don't understand, who are caught up in this kind of U.S. buying into the utter nonsense of the U.S. ever-increasing national debt. It wouldn't matter if our whole country worked nonstop. From now until the beginning of time, we would never pay back this debt. And that's a number that has to be reset. You can't have a human world in which you have that kind of irrational agenda and irrational. You can't align yourself to a goal that is a moving target of that kind of astronomical debt. I mean, you could literally, with this kind of debt, you could buy the whole galaxy, all the planets, if you were not in the Mancuian economic system. Literally, if you were on the ground and were just buying things based on the actual resources that they're valued, you could buy the sun and the moon and Jupiter and the rest of the solar system and all of its resources for this kind of debt based on our current economic Mancuian system. Okay, so it's absurd. I mean, you'll have to create a new kind of galactic currency in order to deal with this kind of debt. Some other kind of species is going to have to come and bail us out of that debt because we ourselves won't do it, or else we have to reset that debt. It's not a number that's rational. Okay, so when you look at what's really happening, what's happened is all of this ever-increasing debt is based on bonds and credit that's been given to us and money that's been given to us on loan from other countries, Japan and China. All of this is based on the great credit contraction. My friend Trace Mayer educated me on monetary science at a very deep level. I spent a lot of time learning how this stuff actually works. And when you look at what's happening, most people don't even know how broad currency and scrutinized debt stocks kind of flow upwards. You see, credit is the only thing that drives and allows this all to be sustainable. But what is credit? Credit is a confidence game. It's a con. It's based on whoever believes whatever it is that they believe. It's the red pill. You know, you have to suddenly go, okay, for real, what are these numbers? What do they really mean? And should they give me some kind of, should they mean something to me? And is there a moral and ethical value for me to buy into this kind of credit system? And even the reason I get into this is because I have people that know people who have actually committed suicide over personal credit card debt. And what I'm trying to show you is that personal debt is bought and sold in the open market in terms of bonds to the highest bidder as write-offs for entire countries. It's killing yourself over a debt that has been accumulated at the personal and planetary level of that size is immoral. It's unethical. Like it shows a moral system that's actually based on a lie, an ethical lie. Okay, and this is what really the credit card system, this whole actual merchants, the whole MAMC system, the merchants, advertisers, and the credit card companies and the media are all a part of maintaining this motivation, this kind of con to make sure that we align ourselves to pay back a debt that is literally fabricated. Now, when you look at what's happened, is that if you're on the ground in planet Earth and you have no understanding of how business works up here in the private sector, if you don't know that the United States is a corporation because it gives special privileges to corporations, if you don't know the difference between maritime law and free men on the land, if you don't understand the concept of how money gets transferred in different instruments, you don't understand that credit is not only credit to the average consumer on the ground where it trickles down to you, but it's also based on the mortgage industry and also based on the bond of a country. And ultimately, at the highest level, it's based on who has the biggest gun. In other words, the biggest military. You see, what's happened is almost all the value on Earth via these instruments, these massive debts, have been sucked through the tornado. I call it the Wizard of Oz tornado. And they've been hurled relentlessly over the rainbow and have been planted firmly in Oz. And yet everybody around you is walking around as if we're still in Kansas. And that's the power of MAMC. MAMC is a living entity. It's a collaboration. It's a network of corporate interests called the United Corporations of America that bond together using merchants, advertisers, credit card companies, and media to maintain a single lie. There's not a bunch of different lies happening. There's not a bunch of conspiracies. There's not prisonplanet.com and all these other memes that use neurological tactics to freak everybody out. There doesn't have to be a bunch of conspiracies. There's only one that matters. And that one is hidden in plain view. That nothing has monetary value and nothing is connected to anything of real actual substance, because it's all been sucked through the derivatives funnel based on debt. That's U.S. debt and the bonds market as it's translated from business write-offs in this country. Okay, nothing has real value. So the Take Back Wall Street movement has not even done a very good job in helping people understand it's not about taking back Wall Street. It's about recognizing that there never was a Wall Street, that these interests are false, that the underlying philosophy behind derivatives, behind actual Manchevian economics, that is the fundamental way, and that our college students and which often become politicians after studying economics have been indoctrinated to value things on the ground, and that we're not in Kansas anymore. It's the main thing that I want you to walk away with, to understand that the system does not collapse, it evaporates. There will be no collapse. There will be a transition from massive Manchevian error into microbanking solutions that act as a patch, a duct tape and string to glue together a massive lie that is a teetering Tower of Babel that cannot sustain itself, not because there's a conspiracy, but because there is the conspiracy to maintain the Manchevian economic status quo. But what's got to happen is, the one thing that they don't want to have happen is that everybody here on the ground who use monetary exchange in a Manchevian falsified system suddenly wake up one day and they look around and they realize that, oh, this is not Kansas, this is the Matrix. We are in Oz. And oh, by the way, we have been for some time. In other words, we're walking on ground, a large part of the ground that China owns now, that other countries own. And we don't want anybody to know that. And those other countries simply own them based on debt and relationships that have occurred through derivatives. And beyond derivatives, there's just giant guns being pointed at each other. And he who has the biggest gun can decide what these numbers are. You can take these numbers up and down. You can not report them like the Federal Reserve has done. You can just make them up. You can snip out billions upon billions of dollars like was done, last October, and pretend that they never existed. That's because they don't exist. They're based on mortgages. Mortgage means death grip. They're based on the pretenses of individuals owning land, which is impossible. This is the biggest secret never told, because it's not a secret. It's hidden in plain view, and there is nothing real whatsoever about our current Manchevian economic system. Solutions to these problems will end up being microbanking. It'll be moving back into sustainable economics. Ecologics will replace Manchevian death economics, and you'll begin to see a world where not only will we take back Wall Street, take back the planet, and start getting honest with irrational numbers. And our value systems in the next merging 7 macro trends will begin to recognize or recognize this blind spot that human beings are willing to put up with. And we will stop getting stressed out about debts that have been heaped on us by politicians, and greedy consumerism, and the machine, or MAMSI, that drives forward the lie of Manchevian economics. The big black swan of our era, which is the unpredictable thing that's going to happen. There is no prophecy that's going to happen. The big unpredictable thing is individuals finally realizing that you cannot pay back a debt that is bigger than the universe. Therefore, you need a new system. The whole thing's broken. It ain't worth fixing. So we can integrate new thought and new epimemes into a new kind of value system. And in spiral dynamics, this was called the yellow and the green value meme containers. We're moving towards it very quickly, and I'll see you on the inside.